Hello and welcome to this webinar about the Marketing and Leadership MSc here at Cranfield School of Management. My name's Dr. Anne-Marie Hanlon and I'm the Programme Director for this MSc, and I'm joined today here in the Cranfield studio by James Sutton from the Chartered Institute of Marketing Academy, CIM Academy, Alexis Drake from ICAEW, who's also a former student, Christina Goodman, who is from our apprenticeship team, and Laura Duck, who is also from the CIM. You're all very welcome, and what we're going to do is we're going to take questions that you may have in the chat area. So any questions, thoughts, anything else you want to add, please pop that into the chat. Let me just give you a little bit of background to this course. So effectively, this is quite an unusual MSc. We did a load of research to actually understand what would be the best type of marketing MSc to deliver to the marketplace. We discovered a few issues. One key issue was there were quite a few marketing MScs, but there were very few that looked at leadership and looked at financial services. So we decided that we needed to add in a whole finance piece. So there's an accounting and finance module. We also organised this programme in partnership with the CIM Academy. And it was designed in two parts. Part one gives the students a fantastic understanding of general management functions, specialist and advanced subjects, and part two enables students to complete a work-based project. So at the end of part one, you would complete your apprenticeship, and at the end of part two, you would gain your MSc. And by completing both parts, you have your level 7 apprenticeship, you have your MSc in Marketing and Leadership, you also have your CIM qualification in the Marketing and Leadership programme. And how does it actually work and what are the timings? Well, let's look at that. Because it's an apprenticeship, you're actually working at the same time. And because you're working at the same time, we don't do a day release where you might come to university one day a week over the 2 years. Instead, you come to university for 8 weeks, but over 2 years. So week one, you come here in April 2024, and then week two is for a week in June. Week three is a week in September. Week four is in November. And then the final 4 weeks take place in 2025. So it's designed around busy working people. And we've structured it so that you build up your knowledge, your skills and your experience over those periods of time. So week one, you might arrive and think, oh wow, I haven't been to university for ages. Or perhaps you didn't get the chance to go to university first time round, and you haven't actually been in a classroom for many, many years. So this way round, we take you through the programme on a gradual basis, building up that knowledge and that expertise. We also constructed the different modules so that they built up your knowledge in these different areas. And we build up parts of marketing, and then we build up the leadership side as well. So we alternate between those different elements. But what makes this a very different programme? Well, I think for me, if I had been looking for a master's degree in marketing, and when I couldn't find what I was looking for, so I actually did an MBA. But what makes this different is that strategic focus on marketing combined with leadership and the commercial focus as well but even more so, you get that professional recognition. So, for example, I would say I took the wrong first degree. So I took my CIM qualification at night school over 2 evenings a week for a year because I couldn't find another way to do this. Whereas because we've partnered with the CIM Academy to actually undertake this programme, you build that up as we're going along, and my colleagues will talk about that in a little bit more detail shortly. But it's that fusion of the academic and the practical. And again, this is another difference, because although as students you have assignments to undertake, the assignments are actually directly linked to your organisation. And because they're linked to your organisation, you're nearly becoming consultants for your organisation while you're doing this. So the organisation is getting fantastic value from doing this too. If you're in the UK and working with various organisations, whether it's a large or a small organisation, you'll be able to apply through the government apprenticeship scheme. And this means that a big part of the apprenticeship is completely funded through the government apprenticeship programme. It then means that there's just a small top-up to pay to gain the master's piece. But I'm going to let Alexis talk about this in a little bit more detail shortly. So let me hand over to Alexis, and then I'm going to be speaking to James to give you a little bit more detail about the programme. So let me hand over to Alexis to just ask you, tell us about your experience here as a student and how it worked for you.
Well, thanks, Anne-Marie. I actually started this qualification during the pandemic, which was tricky. A lot of the teaching was delivered virtually, apart from the last 2 lecture weeks. But I decided to do it during the pandemic, really because it was a great way of taking the focus off what was happening on the world at the time. So it gave me an extra kind of spring in my step. I also really wanted to level up what I knew in marketing. So I'd been kind of an operational, a tactical marketer for 5 years and many more during my recruitment years. And I felt like I really wanted that academic rigour to underpin the practical knowledge that I'd already gained.
Wow. And tell me, did you go to university first time round, or did you go straight into the world of work? What was your own personal background?
Yeah, so my journey was a little bit wiggly and not very straightforward, which is probably interesting for the viewers to find out. Not every person's career follows a straight path, and mine certainly didn't. So a bit like yourself mentioning how you found you were doing the wrong first degree, I also found myself doing an undergraduate degree that wasn't really me. So I didn't finish that, and I decided to work at a very early age, at about 19, and I was a recruiter in London for several years then. It's only coming back to education, having the opportunity to do the apprenticeship, that really allowed me to do this master's. So mine was a slightly unusual case.
It's interesting you say it's slightly unusual. I don't think it is that unusual, because although in terms of the entry requirements for the programme, either you have a good bachelor's degree, but also we've had a number of people on the programme who didn't get the chance to go to university first time round for whatever reason. Either like you, they started and thought, I'd rather work,
Yeah.
or they weren't ready to go into further studying, or they just didn't get the opportunity. And these are people who've got fantastic work experience and got to a point in their career where they thought, I would actually now like to take a degree. And they would now want to take, and actually they can then take the elevator and go straight to a master's degree with what we call acquired prior learning, based on having had a number of years in the workplace and having had fantastic experience. And interestingly, when people commit to taking a master's, they're often more serious as a student than maybe as an 18 or a 19-year-old student might be at that time. And we also find that students at that level are more dedicated and they get amazing results. And it does make a big difference.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think my motivations for learning were so strong. And I'd felt that by not having this qualification or a kind of a very robust qualification had held me back in my career. So I think that certainly pushed me through to get this done during challenging times, both on a global scale, but also sort of personally to try and fit this in amongst work and normal life. It certainly kept me going.
Wow. And tell me, what role are you working in now? Where are you working and what are you doing there?
Yeah, so I've had quite a journey since finishing the MSc. So I've actually made two quite quick jumps in succession. But the benefit to that is that I've managed to increase my earning capacity by 38% in 9 months.
Wow.
So I think during a
Can you
cost of
just
living.
pause there for a second?
Yeah.
So basically, you've had nearly a 40% pay rise
I have, yeah.
in a very
yeah.
short period of time.
Which is crucial during a cost of living crisis, but also as a single parent, for me, it's been an absolute game changer. And I do put a lot of that down to having this MSc and the senior leader qualification, because it's something I've been able to talk about in interviews, on my CV. It's definitely been the level up that I needed to open doors.
Wow.
So the job I'm doing at the moment, I'm a senior marketing manager for the Institute of Chartered Accountants for England and Wales. I'm doing the student marketing, or overseeing the strategy for that, really. I've pulled away completely from operational and tactical marketing, pulled away from the doing, and now I'm looking at the strategy, which is really, really exciting. I've also managed to use the leadership side of the qualification to help how I manage people. So managing people really wasn't something I was involved in much before, but now I've got a team of 6 and growing all the time.
Wow. It's another interesting point I think about this degree in particular is that we do look at strategic marketing. And Alexis, as you just said there, you've moved away from the doing into the managing, and that's the strategizing part of it. And this is quite key. And this is also very important to us when we were actually creating the degree. We wanted something that didn't teach you how to create a Facebook ad. You can Google that, you can look online, you can join various programs to do that. We wanted to talk to people more about how they manage teams that were doing that, or what would be the overall online marketing strategy. And we also wanted to understand more about accounting and finance. A big criticism of marketing people is that, they're very good at the doing and the creative, but they don't understand the bigger picture. They're not very good at finance. They can't do numbers. So we do have a module in this, accounting and finance, for that specific reason. And many people in the beginning are absolutely terrified about the notion of doing accounting and finance, but we take them through the journey. We've got a brilliant tutor who takes them through the journey of that, and they do extraordinarily well on that as well.
Yes, they do really well. And I have to hold my hands up as one of those people who was terrified of the accounting and finance module, having done the lower paper in maths in GCSE. So this was something that I worried about significantly in taking the programme. But actually coming to it and the way it was taught, very practical, very methodical, and lots of different test papers that we could take away. It meant that I just managed to prepare myself and get through the exam. But you're right, it is something that I think a lot of marketers might look at and think, I'm not sure, am I a number phobe? Can I do this? I'm more comfortable with words, with pictures, with that kind of thing. But actually it's crucial. And one of the roles I now have is to deal with budgets, which again I wasn't really doing in my previous roles. And to have that language to be able to communicate what we need to finance directors, to people like that, to speak in the same terms as them has really been able to, improve the conversations I'm having with them.
That's really good to hear. And that's exactly what that module does, because I remember certainly when I was at school a very long time ago, I remember there were things like Jane and Mark are travelling to London. Jane is on the train that is travelling so far, and Mark is driving. Who gets there quickest? And all those sort of issues, whereas this is much more practical and applied and looks at budgets, looks at financial forecasts, which are the things you need to do. if you actually want to be part of a boardroom conversation, and if you want to be able to make a business case and show the return on investment, because a lot of marketing, especially performance marketing and digital marketing, has become much more numbers orientated, I think we can say.
Absolutely.
So that definitely does make a difference. You also mentioned about the leadership side of it and leading groups of people. And this is something where marketing people can often fall into accidentally, where they're leading a team, but they haven't been given the tools or the frameworks or the skills to be able to do that. So you gained tools and frameworks to be able to do that while you were taking this degree.
Yeah, absolutely. So the organisational and leadership modules that we did gave us some real insights into how organisations run, the nuances of it, people's work motivations. We also did a lot of tests at the beginning, so psychological profiling, which again I actually used on my CV, which were great conversation starters. So I learnt a lot about myself personally during the course. We did things like MBTI profiling, Thomas Belbin, how we managed conflict. We even had a psychological capital score, which mine improved by 20% over the 2 years. And that's the kind of thing that I actually decided to put on my CV to help open doors, to make those conversations more interesting, and to give me an edge over other applicants as well.
It's really good to hear. I know when I saw the cohort from this year, and they were going through the psychometric tests, as you say, and taking either the Myers-Briggs or the Belbin or one of these tests, they were very, very excited about them all. And then some of them were actually thinking, I'm going to take this back to other people in my organisation and get them to do it. Or they were starting to decide where people in their organisation fitted, which was also quite fascinating. Certainly the Belbin test, when Belbin designed his particular test, it was all about identifying team roles and where the strengths were and how you formulated the ideal team for different types of activities. And it also explained why some teams get a lot of things done and why some teams sit around and talk all day but get very few activities done. So that was an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Alexis, anything else you want to add or you want to share before I bring James into our conversation and ask him, how does the CIM plug into all of this?
Well, I think in terms of juggling work and study commitments, perhaps I could touch on that.
Please, yes.
Because as somebody who was working full-time whilst during the course, this was something that I did have a long think about before I decided to embark on it. I would say it's really crucial for people who are considering this course to really get their employer bought in to the fact that they're doing it, to really communicate with them about why it's going to benefit them, the fact that you're going to be able to really practically apply what you learn into your role, and that it will start positively affecting them from literally the first lecture week. For me, I was lucky because my employer at the time was Cranfield University, and so they understood the necessity to have the 20% off the job working, studying time. So for me, I had 1 day a week where I just concentrated on this, which was really crucial for me to get through the programme. Other people I know, their employers weren't quite so generous, and that was a struggle for them. So I'd say it's really important to have those conversations up front if you can, about what the time commitment is.
That's really interesting. I know some students have mentioned that they've become mini consultants within their own organisation. So although there is a time given to them for their study and for their work, I think the other part of it, the balancing part of that, is they're contributing on a different level already very early on. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. We'll come back in a moment. I wonder if we can speak to James now and bring James from CIM Academy into our conversation. And if the studio would like to bring James up, I can see him there on the screen. Perfect. Okay. James, you're very welcome here today. And I'm a big fan of the CIM. I've been a chartered marketeer since it started, and very committed to marketing, to actually acknowledge that if you are in marketing, you should have a vocational professional qualification, because lots of people can say they're in marketing. There are very few people who are properly qualified in marketing. So James, do tell us more about CIM and our partnership here.
Oh, thank you, Anne-Marie. Some lovely words there, and I think we've spent a lot of time talking together, and I think our two organisations have spent a lot of time talking together as well. And I think we're trying to achieve very, very similar things. I wouldn't mind bringing up a couple of slides just to run through to give a bit of an overview about CIM. Brilliant, thank you. We just move to the next one. Okay, so quite a number of people, I think, within our profession of marketing, whether you're starting off or you're further in your career, will have touched CIM at some point, or maybe even just read something or connected with our LinkedIn groups even. And we might be familiar with the fact that we do training, qualifications, which is very much what we're here to talk about today, and of course our membership as far as becoming a member of CIM. But I just really wanted to touch on that actually underneath all of that, as far as our core purpose, underneath those kind of products and product streams, relates to our Royal Charter. So we have a responsibility as an organisation, as many other professional bodies do. I think it was really interesting seeing Alexis from ICAEW that will have very similar things within their charter about their responsibility. So underneath, the more visible outputs, really, there's a key role about how we work together and work with partners such as Cranfield to help represent the profession, look at the standards of professional conduct, how we act and behave as professionals, but also the level of attainment or the subjects, the knowledge that we need to achieve at different levels in order to perform and practice and to support our organisations. A key part that I'll touch on a bit later then is about then accrediting that achievement. So we all put in all this hard work to learn, to study, to develop in our careers. Well, part of the role of a professional body is not just to accredit through qualifications, but to provide professional recognition through membership and designatory letters, which is really fundamental about how we can partner with professionals throughout their career, not just at the points of study. And the last point really underneath all of this is really around how we work as a professional community. And it's not just CIM's role, but it's every business, every marketing professional, and every institution such as Cranfield. And I think our relationship with Cranfield, as I've said, has been born for many years, working with Anne-Marie and others to build this programme has been a really enjoyable experience to say, actually, how can we create the best possible experience for the learners, but also when they complete the programme, they're armed with not just all the tools at their disposal to improve their career and perform better in their role, but also the accreditations that go with that, which I'll come on to in a moment. So if we can just hop over to the next slide, please, that'd be brilliant. Thank you. I'm not going to go through all these kind of numbers. We have members and learners all over the world. We're well over 100 years old of supporting the profession, but it's moving so fast, it's changing so fast. We have to constantly adapt our programs, which makes the profession so exciting, but it means we've got to constantly be talking to businesses and academia to make sure that we are providing the right information in real time and it's current. One thing I did want to highlight, just to clarify, so yes, I work for the Chartered Institute of Marketing. In the bottom right hand corner of that slide, you'll see that we have over 100 accredited study centres. We have these most fantastic relationships with colleges, universities that deliver CIM qualifications around the world. And CIM Academy is CIM's own direct or wholly owned centre. So that's the connection between CIM and CIM Academy. But essentially, for CIM qualifications, we deliver all the same products. Now, you'll notice there's a big number on there of 750 accredited degrees. So when we create our professional standards, we can basically match and look at other marketing degree programmes and have a look and match them against CIM standards. But there's a big difference from 750, and there's a giant number 1 in the middle of the slide, and that relates to this programme. There is no programme anywhere in the world where CIM has worked with a university to create a truly embedded programme where you don't have to get exemptions or multiple qualifications, it's all built into one. So this is really quite special. I think we're certainly very proud of what's been developed here, and I think the learner will really benefit. And if we go to the next slide, I kind of explain what's a bit different. So Anne-Marie and Alexis have described quite a bit about the apprenticeship and the top-up thesis to get the full MSc. I just want to focus on the CIM element of that very briefly. So CIM's highest level qualification that it delivers directly is its marketing leadership program. It's a level 7 program. It normally has 3 modules, standalone modules that you need to do. When we worked together with Cranfield, we mapped the 2 programs and said, well, the first thing, we don't need to do contemporary challenges, so we can take that off the list. That leaves 2 modules. During your apprenticeship phase of this program, we have built in CIM's leading change module into the program. So it's not doing extra work, it's instead of. So you'll take that assessment will essentially, both of us will review it, and you'll get a CIM award as well as completing your apprenticeship. Then when you move on to do the top-up and the thesis for the full MSc, we've also embedded our consultancy program module into that as well. So you don't need to do any extra work as if you were doing the MSc without the CIM relationship. But what that actually means at the end is that not only if you did the full program would you get the apprenticeship, you'd also get the MSc, you would also have CIM's marketing leadership program, which is our flagship qualification. And in addition to that, we have built in professional membership into this program, so there's no extra cost for that. So for your whole period of study, you'll be a professional member of CIM, of which case, depending on your experience, you can get designatory letters to recognise where you are in your career. And once you've completed the program, and this is probably a more thorough conversation around collecting CPD, but once you've been recording your activity through doing the program, by the end of it, then you can apply to become a chartered marketer. So essentially, through doing one program, full program over 2 years, you could come up with an apprenticeship, the MSc, the marketing leadership program, professional membership designation, and chartered marketer status, which is 5 accreditations in 2 years. And I think that should make a huge impact and a huge mark on your CV, your career, and your earning potential. And I'm just going to hand back to Anne-Marie and Alexis, but I believe on that last point to do with chartered marketer, Alexis, you're working towards your chartered marketer status, is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, James. Although I realised I could have done those 2 things concurrently during my programme, I made the decision to actually pursue the chartered marketer status once I'd finished. So I'm now going through that process, and it involves submitting sort of evidence really of my professional role several times throughout the year over a 2-year period. So I'm just coming to the end of year 1. And it's not too onerous, and it's certainly nothing like the MSc. But where the MSc has helped me in the senior leadership qualification, the apprenticeship side, is because I was already in the rhythm of recording my reflective statements, of thinking about how I was performing in the workplace, of using things like the STAR technique, and thinking about kind of knowledge, skills and behaviours. So that's how it's really helped me to actually go through this CPD process.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, James. It's really absolutely fascinating, and great that you bring up chartered marketeer status and also Alexis. When, I've been a chartered marketeer since it started, because I firmly believed it was important to gain that chartered status to distinguish between somebody else who just says they're in marketing. And friends I have who work in recruitment, I know it's something that they look for when they're looking at more senior levels. But I think one of the key things is, because this programme takes place over 24 months, 2 years, if you register for CPD and for the chartered status at the very beginning of your journey on the MSc, typically it's over 2 years, and you could graduate and literally gain chartered marketeer status within a matter of weeks later. which is also a major advantage. So it's something to consider. And to maintain my chartered status, I undertake CPD, Continuous Professional Development, every year. And CIM now has an online portal. I go onto the online portal, I explain what I've been doing, I have to reflect and justify and explain how this has increased or enhanced my knowledge, but it ensures that I actually stay current. And anybody who is chartered, a key thing is it means they stay current, rather than having a qualification, putting it in the drawer, taking it out 20 years later and say, oh, I'm right up to date with this, when actually you might not be. So it is really, really important and ensures that people with chartered status are at that cutting edge, and that is key. So excellent. We've got a question here that's come through from Angelique, who says she works for a manufacturer of houses and wants to understand the key elements of the course and how she can apply that to her role and the wider organisation. I wonder, I had a slide that had the whole programme up, the timeline, and I wonder if the studio team can bring that up on the screen in a moment. But Angelique, one of the key things is it doesn't really matter where you work. And at the moment, we've got students who are working in logistics, they're working in IT, software, education, somebody who's working in veterinary products, and then a whole group of people who are working in agency. So if we look on the screen at the moment, and you can see on here that we do have these 8 very specific weeks, and within each of these weeks there are 2 modules. So at the beginning, what you're doing is you're undertaking 2 modules. The first module you're taking is understanding markets and competitors. Now, I'm very biased, and I would say this, wouldn't I? But this is my module. So it is a fantastic module where you actually go and have a really deep dive to understand how markets operate and how your competitors operate and what you're doing and how you're doing it. And this gives you tools to bring back into your workplace to say, actually, this is what this or that house builder are doing, or this is what this constructor. I don't know if you're in house building or if you're making kit houses. I know quite a lot about house building, but I don't know which part of that you're in. But it gives you a lot of tools to actually really do a deep dive into your organisation, your competitors, and bring that back into a senior level within the organisation and get them to look at that. And with that, you'll undertake another module. You'll be looking at understanding customers. You'll then be looking at the first part of organisational behaviour and leadership, and that's in 2 parts. And the first part of that is where you're undertaking the psychometric tests to understand what your behaviour is within a team. And that means that you can actually look at how does this influence, impact others within the organisation, and where is their behaviour. There is also a people management and leadership. If we just pop that one onto the screen again, that little, my very useful handy slide, I should print that out as a little aid memoir, because it's difficult to remember all 16 all the time. And you'll be looking at growth and innovation. And growth and innovation is another fantastic module that one of my colleagues leads. And that looks at how do you actually develop growth within an organisation. Many organisations operate on a static basis, and it's difficult to grow and look for growth, which can be through new product development, developing new services, or just doing something radically different. And that's about the innovation piece. And that may be about disruptive innovation or digital transformation. How do you bring those elements in? In the next block, in block or week 3 as we call it, which is a number of months later, you're looking at value propositions. And this is all about, well, what does value represent to your customer or your client? What is value to them? it's understanding it, it's breaking that down into the different parts. And feedback from our existing students has been, that was an amazing thing. And many students who work in agency have said, wow, this brought us a whole load of tools and frameworks. And you know what? We took these and we used these with our clients. So they went back into their clients, because they were sitting, obviously working agency side, they went and they spoke to their clients and they said, we'd actually like to do this and do something different with you for this session and look at how we do this. And it actually made major differences there as well. Accountancy and finance, we've spoken about several times, the value there. And then we move into week 4, where you look at organisational behaviour for leaders, part 2, and then customer relationships and delivery channels. So this again is another elevation of strategic marketing, where you're looking at the delivery channels. You may not be dealing with consumers or customers, maybe it's clients, and this is where that B2B sales process, or maybe business to government or business to a different organisation, comes into play. Then later on, when you figured out who are your competitors, where are your markets, how do we grow, what's value, where are our channels, only then do you actually move into marketing communications. And I have to say, this is the difference between, and I'm sure Alexis would agree with me, this is the difference between tactical and strategic marketing. Tactical marketing always starts at Marcoms. We don't even start Marcoms in the programme until year 2. So you've gone through everything before you actually get to marketing communications. And it's so critical.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree.
Yeah, and I think from that, and very often this is the mistake that many organisations make. They start at the very beginning on marketing communications, and you shouldn't touch that until you've actually looked at value, potential growth, all of those other elements. It's absolutely key. And then there's the module that James mentioned, which is very firmly embedded with the CIM, and this is leading change. And it's so firmly embedded with CIM, we thought, well, actually, why don't we actually run this? Instead of running it on campus here at Cranfield, why don't we do this at the CIM's headquarters down in Moor Hall in Cookham in Berkshire? So we do that, which is a great opportunity to, because at that stage you are actually professional members of the CIM, to look at what else is happening there. And when you have done that, we then look at how do you evaluate marketing effectiveness, which looks at how do you actually calculate the return on investment? What are those key marketing KPIs that you're calculating? And at that point, you have then completed the taught parts of the apprenticeship module. There are then the apprenticeship parts to go into, and I'm sure Christina, who's on the call, will, I'll bring Christina in a moment to actually answer some questions on those pieces. And when you've actually completed the submission of that apprenticeship part, then you complete the last part, which converts it into an MSc. And this is where you'll undertake research methods and actually go through and undertake the thesis. We call it a thesis, but actually it's an action research project where you're undertaking a major consultancy project within your own organisation. So I'm going to pop over, I think, to Laura Duck from our CM Academy, and then to Christina. And Laura, you've been very involved with the Leading Change programme and how we hold that and what we do at Cookham. I wonder if you'd like to say a few words on how that works and how we've embedded Leading Change into the programme.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, like you said, we've worked really closely together in the creation of this qualification alone. But yeah, major thing is that the Leading Change module does take place at our CIM Business Centre. So all students that complete that module attend on site for a couple of days where they receive our hospitality, which I've heard great feedback on, as well as having that insight to CIM directly and also meeting myself and other people in the CIM as well. So yeah, that is a well-received part, I would say, of the qualification, and just kind of highlights that cohesive, I guess, or seamless partnership that we have together.
Thank you, Laura. And actually, Laura, I'll grab onto you for a moment longer, if I may, as well, please. There's a question here. What support do learners get from the CIM Academy during the process, during the Marketing and Leadership MSc?
Yeah, so with that, I would say a lot of the support happens behind the scenes. Yourself and I, Anne-Marie, work very closely together, as well as the support team at Cranfield. So a lot of that is done, yeah, I guess, behind the scenes, but there is that access. And if students do need kind of further support, or the questions that they have, concerns they have surrounding those CIM modules, if you're not sure, then a phone call or something like that can be arranged, and you'll have direct access to me and also our learning advisors as well. So yeah, I would say that's probably the main thing.
Excellent, thank you. I think you're underselling it there as well. There's a whole other piece with the CIM, because as professional members, additional support that students get is the CIM has a lot of professional membership benefits, which also include, if you're looking for a new job, although we have that here at Cranfield with our employment team, there's also an additional team there at the CIM. There's a jobs board, there's many people contact and actually exclusively advertise marketing posts through the CIM. In addition to the Cranfield online library, there's also the CIM library. There are differences between the two. I was really recently looking for an academic paper which I didn't find through Cranfield, but I did find it through my CIM membership, so that was also helpful. So there are some additional benefits that are there. CIM also holds other events that you can get involved with, whether they're in London or other parts of the country, and they're available to go through to professional members. And excellent. I've got a question for Alexis, and then I will go to Christina. But Alexis, you asked a question about, you mentioned about a 20% release being the usual workload. Would you say on average there is around 8 hours a week study time on top of the 2 years, on top of the formal training? I guess the question is really, how much time do you allocate to doing the MSc? Which is an excellent question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So I would say you need to allow for more than 8 hours a week, particularly if you want to get good grades, which I did. And for me, really, I dedicated every other weekend plus the 1 day a week to studying. It kind of worked out like that on average. When you're doing the modules with your learning team, there might be some evening work that you have to do because, of course, everyone is working during the day. So we did a lot of sessions together in the evenings. I think the key thing to remember is this is a commitment, and it has to be something that you really want to do. And there are going to be some things in your personal life that will have to slide for the 2 years. It's just about that balancing act and figuring out what your priorities are in order to get the qualification done.
Thank you so much. It's really interesting, and that's a very good point. Not everybody can do a master's. I know when I was taking my MBA, not everybody that started it finished it. So some people do think, oh yes, this is easy, I can do it. I think if it was easy, I would say everybody would do it. It does require work, it does require dedication, it does require commitment. But you know, the great thing about a qualification is when you've got it, nobody can take it away. It's yours and you have it for life. You've then earned it. And I know many people do want to get really high grades, which is fantastic to do. But equally, not everybody asks, what grade did you get with a master's? Certainly when I took my masters, it was a simple pass or fail. So that was very straightforward. They were not graded at the time. These days they are graded, but it's not always a question that was asked. I've had another question here that's asked me as somebody, Sherelle. Hi, hello Sherelle, you're very welcome here today in a head of marketing role. And she's asking, are there any funding opportunities or bursaries available outside the costs of the apprenticeship levy? And the answer to that is no, there aren't any bursaries because it is an apprenticeship. So most of the course costs are covered through the apprenticeship, and then there is a top up for the master's piece. We found most students, their companies will actually fund it, and it is over the 2 years. Self-funded students have spoken to our finance office and they organise a payment plan, and that's how that is organised. But thank you, that's an excellent question. Let me go to Christina Goodman, and Christina is part of our fantastic apprenticeship team who manages all the red tape and everything we have to do, because obviously it is an apprenticeship. We are using government money, and so we do have a due diligence, we have a duty of care, how that money is spent. It has to be properly accounted for. And I know, Christina, you do the hand-holding of the students to actually evidence and to make sure that they are doing the right thing with that. And typically, let me ask, how does the apprenticeship team support students through their apprenticeship journey?
Thanks, Anne-Marie. So we're actually here to support not only the apprentice, but the employer as well. And we're here from the very start of the journey to the very end. So as soon as an employer expresses an interest in completing one of the apprenticeships here at Cranfield, we take them through the process and we support them in their apprentices applying in the first place, all the way up to registration, supplying the evidence that they need and making sure they are eligible for that apprenticeship funding. Once they're on programme, we have some fantastic apprenticeship tutors that support the apprentice and their line manager through their journey, and we ensure that the apprentices are ready and prepared for Gateway and then their endpoint assessment, and we prepare them thoroughly for that, and that is evidenced in our excellent pass rates, which we have over 97% pass rate at present.
Wow, 97%, that's quite something. Christina, you mentioned something there called Gateway. What do you mean by Gateway?
So there's 3 key stages to every apprenticeship. So whichever apprenticeship standard you undertake, it is the same. So there's the on-programme element, and that's where you'll be studying the majority with Cranfield. You'll be doing some self-learning, implementation in the workplace. You might be undertaking a business project. You'll be developing your portfolio of evidence, undertaking your reviews, and then you move on to the next stage, which is called Gateway, and that is ensuring that you've completed all the requirements for the apprenticeship. You've got your business plan in place. You have your maths and English evidence, you've got a sign off from your employer to say you are ready for that final stage, which is the endpoint assessment, and that is the check and the external assessment by the CIM to ensure that you've met all the requirements for the apprenticeship and can be awarded not only your academic qualification but the apprenticeship certificate as well.
Thank you, Christina. That's really interesting. And you mentioned there English and maths. And I know over the years we've had some students who said, oh, well, I took that a very long time ago. I can't find the certificate. And there is now a mechanism in place where lost certificates can actually be retrieved, I understand. Is that right?
Yes, so whatever the circumstances for each individual, we are able to support them in obtaining the right level of maths and English evidence that they would need to complete their apprenticeship.
Excellent. And supposing somebody first time round didn't manage to get their maths or their English, whether it was a GCSE, an O-level or whatever it was in days gone by, there is also a support programme to take them through that, isn't there?
There most certainly is, and nobody should be worried about not having their level 2 maths and English, so that's GCSE, grade C or higher or equivalent. Some people were having a great time when they were 16, and that's fine. We can support them with what's called functional skills tests. So therefore, they would go forward and sit. It's a much shorter test than a GCSE. They would undertake that exam, and that would give them sufficient evidence for their maths and English. We wouldn't just send them forward for this test. We'll make sure that they are prepared and ready to pass and be successful.
Perfect. And I think these days, I think anybody who's actually managing a household, working, doing any of those things, we're all budgeting every day of the week. We're either budgeting or we're using our English skills every day of the week. So as you say, at the age of 16, where perhaps you're living at home and you don't need to think about any of those things, or perhaps you're having a good time and less focused on those things at that moment in time, it's a little bit more challenging. Excellent. Okay. Let me just go to some general Q&A. If we bring, I don't know if we bring everybody up on the screen here or not. Some other questions have come up. Let me have a look and just see. There's a question here for Alexis as well. I understand you've also set up a consultancy business, so you're involved with ICAEW as well. Where do you utilise tools and theories from your MSc, from your that you gained during the programme?
Yeah, so this is possibly one of the most exciting things that have come out of the MSc for me. So in my previous role, I was working for Reed, the recruitment people, and I noticed a gap in their consultancy market. So they actually have a part of their company that deals with HR consultancy, so things like salary benchmarking and things like that. So I approached that part of the business, and with a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit that I had, I actually productized some of the tools from the Understanding Customers module and presented this to their director, who took it on, and we managed to sell it.
Wow.
I know. I was shocked as well. So there is a visual actually to show how I transformed some of the tools from that module and productized them and made them relevant for the recruitment sector. So I think we can see that on screen now.
Wow.
So the PESTLE analysis I put in there, that's a kind of a horizon scanning technique that we learnt on the programme. And then the critical success factor matrix, the CSF, this was hilariously one of the things I really struggled with on the programme. And then there I was 9 months later actually delivering workshops to employers on it. So I considered that quite a big win because it's very numbers based, very strategic, and as a way of really kind of figuring out who the employer competitors were and how these people could then transform their marketing communications to compete in a market like that. We also learned things like the brand positioning map. So this is where I plotted various employers against each other, and it provided our clients with a real kind of easy visual way of seeing where they were competing and where they were perhaps not competing very well. I took this one stage further, and I actually developed the employer battle card, which you can see at the bottom. And that was a real snapshot view of how any marketer or recruiter, particularly in an SME who wouldn't have these kind of strategic skills in the business, could just take this, look at who their competitors are, and then figure out exactly what their messaging is and how they can spend their marketing budget in a way that's really going to hit home with prospective candidates. So even though I don't work for Reed anymore, they've actually retained me as a consultant. So I've set up my own small burgeoning business called Attraction Alchemy. And for anyone who's interested in the programme and is wanting to set up something for themselves, either now or in the future, it's really important for you to know that you come away with some really practical experience, practical things that you can use, that you can develop, and that you can sell and start making an extra sideline business from.
Wow, that's quite phenomenal. That's that straight away, it's a quick win for everybody, for both the employer and for you as well, and something on an ongoing basis. That's definitely paid off.
Definitely.
Excellent. Okay, well, I've got a question here that's come through for Christina, and the question is on the apprenticeship, and it's, what if real life gets in the way and something happens and I'm delayed? What do I do? Because I got my gateway on a specific day and something happens. What do I do?
put off the gateway, just to make that clear. But obviously, if something really drastic happens, then we can postpone that for you. But in general, if life does get in the way, it happens to everyone. Things do happen, don't they? They crop up, and the average age of our apprentices is in and around the mid-30s. So it's a time of life when there can be lots of changes. If work becomes too much or things going on at home and family life is impacting, then you can take what's called a break in learning. So you pause your apprenticeship. So you can continue working, but you wouldn't be working towards your apprenticeship or be undertaking any study with Cranfield. When you feel in a position to return to your study, we work with the course team to ensure that we can design a learning plan that fits with you for the remainder of your study. And then you would change the end date. So whatever your pause has been, that duration would be added on to the end, and you would be put forward for the next appropriate gateway for your programme.
Perfect, thank you so much. I'm just checking, there don't seem to be any other questions. Is there, James and Laura, is there anything else that you want to add that I might have missed? Or do you think we've covered absolutely everything we possibly could there? James, I'll ask you first and then Laura.
Yeah, I think, Alexis, you mentioned this a couple of times. It's probably worth really emphasising getting the support of your employer and your family about the commitment, because this, you go through this together with the people around you, and actually it could be an amazing experience, but it's having that support with you. It might seem like a lot in 2 years, but once that 2 years is done, and it will fly by, the opportunities are vast, but it's having those conversations beforehand, make sure that your boss really supportive. So just to re-emphasise Alexis' point there, because I think it's really important that the reward is fantastic as far as not just the accreditation, but how rewarding the actual programme is. And I think another thing is that we don't talk about enough is not just learning through the course content, you're learning through the other people on the course and their experiences. And I think that's really important. In the same way, Anne-Marie talked about, some of the other parts to CIM membership, but one of the biggest values is connecting with the other people around you and learning from them, not just the course. That's it from me.
Perfect, thank you so much, James. Laura, anything else that we might have missed that we should have added in, or has James taken the piece you were about to say as well?
That would be the easy answer. No, I did have something that I was going to say, and I think both you, Anne-Marie, and James have touched on it. It's that the fact that, yes, the qualification is 2 years, but once you have that, you have it for life. And the designatory letters that come with that is DIP M, and that does stay with you forever. So you might not carry on with membership for the rest of your career, which might get you designatory letters as well, but these ones that come with the CIM level 7 will stay with you forever. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that.
Perfect, thank you so much. Excellent. Alexis, anything else before I bring the session to a close?
Yeah, there was really. It's kind of touching upon what James said about the other people on the course, and I can say hand on heart that I've met friends for life. In fact, my latest job opportunity came from someone on my learning team. So I'm now working directly with somebody who was my study buddy throughout the course, and we're able to talk about our Cranfield experience, use the tools that we learned on the programme to really level up what our department is doing. And that for me was just an amazing opportunity to have that shared experience and to now be working with that person at the ICAEW. So it's definitely transformed my life, and I know it will transform other people's too.
Thank you so much. Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us here today. And thank you to James, Alexis, Christina and Laura. I mentioned my name's Anne-Marie. If you have questions, thoughts, comments that you think afterwards I should have asked that or I'd like to know more, please do get in contact. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.